Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you are doing well. My name is Mark Dolfini of Strategic Boardroom, and it is a frosty day outside wherever you're at in the U.S., except my friend who is snowbirding in Florida and had to send me a screenshot of the temperature, which is 81 degrees, and my temperature looks very sad. It looks like it says 4 degrees outside, and if you look at the number 4 with a little degree sign, it looks like it's got his little head hanging down. So, yeah, so he's having a bad day outside. The temperature's having a bad day. But so for those of you who are joining me today, please let me know who you are, where you're from. Obviously, who you are. I'll be captured by your name and your in the comment section here. But just let me know where you're from and what line of work that you're in. Let me know where you're from and your line of work. All right, there you go. All right, so that is out there. It's really good to see you guys. So you are here because you're going to learn about networking, and especially if your networking is not working. This is something that I run into quite often with folks they spend a lot of time getting out there, putting their name out there, and they just don't feel like they're getting traction. And maybe they're not getting any direct sales, but they're also not really getting any referrals. And not getting direct sales is one thing, but not getting referrals is an entirely other thing. So I really want to spend time today for those of you who are here. Was this stream deleted on Facebook? I don't believe so. Is anybody joining me? Oh, here we go. Trying to get. It looks like Facebook is not going along. Not going for the ride. All right, sorry about that for those of you who tried to join on Facebook. It is no worky. All right, that's okay though. All right, so we've got a couple of other folks. Colorado Springs. I'm a business banker. Colorado Springs. All right, very good. It's nice to. Is it Bretagne? Bretagne? I don't know. That's a pretty name. I like it. I apologize if I'm butchering that. Carol from Nashville, Tennessee, health and wellness. Very good. I've got a few really good friends down in Nashville and Franklin area and a couple in Murfreesboro. So I don't really need much of an excuse to go straight down 65 to good old Nashville. I live in Lafayette, Indiana. So that's straight south. And that there's a dinosaur world for those of you who if you've got small kids. It's just south of Louisville in Kentucky. And we have a 3-year-old who is absolutely adores dinosaurs. And if for any of you who may follow me on social media, she had her T-Rex and had a little ribbon tied around the T-Rex's tail. That was really adorable. So, oh, you're in Franklin. How about that, Carol? Right. I love it. Yeah, it's a neat area. I really, really like it. I like it down there. In fact, we had an Airbnb that we stayed in down there. Devin is in Chesapeake, Virginia. Very good. Devin, let me know what you do and what line of work that you're in. Michelle Novik is from New Jersey. Let me know from where in New Jersey, Michelle. I actually grew up in the tri-state area. I grew up in the Catskills, so I'm not sure if what part of Jersey that you're from. It's interesting too because Jersey is really like North Jersey and South Jersey. It's really two very different groups of people from North Jersey to South Jersey. I'm sorry. Is it Cyrene? We're gonna go with Cyrene. Washington State in the hospitality industry. Very good. And Devin, you're an insurance broker. Very good. All right. Excellent. Well, I'm glad that all of you could make it today. Here's the thing that I want to talk about, and we're going to get into this. And I love that you guys are chatty already. Don't let that drift off. If you've got questions, if you've got comments along the way, please feel free to light up the comment section. That just kind of lets me know that you're engaged, that you're not trying to multitask, because that's the main thing, right? And I'm so guilty of this too. I was going through a video course that I had paid a few bucks for, and I paid for this. And I found myself in the middle of this video course checking my phone and wandering over here and doing other things. So I have to train my brain just like the rest of everybody else, and allowing those distractions to come into my life. I was missing nuggets, and I had to go back and re-listen to some of these things because I was allowing myself to be distracted. So really what we're doing is we're trying to train our brain for over the next about an hour or so. Probably I put this down for 90 minutes. I don't think it's going to take that long, but it's up to you guys. If you've got if you got things to discuss and you want to go through them, I'm happy to to discuss those things. Michelle, you are in Livingston. I do not know where that is. I don't actually know Jersey as well as I once did, but I grew up in the Middletown, Newburgh area in New York. So, okay, well, let's get into this. So, if your networking is not working, I want you to start thinking about this. You are a certified senior advisor. Okay, very good, Michelle. Thank you for joining us today. What I want for you guys to think about is if your networking is not working, I want you to first and foremost, I want you to think about this, all right? And before we get into the real meat and potatoes, I want to ask each and every one of you to pay attention to something for me, okay? I am looking to connect with business owners and entrepreneurs that you may know who are in the service industry, who are in the contracting industry. You might think of coffee shop owners. They might be restaurant owners. They might be in the real estate business. They could be in sales. They could be in rentals. They could be property management, or they could be in contracting, like heating and air conditioning, general contractors, or even people who do room additions. Okay. What did I do just there? What did I do just there? Think about that for a second. When I started asking you really specific people and industries, you might have been thinking, oh, wait, I know Joe who's got that coffee shop. My brother's got an HVAC company. My friend is a realtor, right? That is really, really critical when you're asking for referrals. We're not talking about going out and networking to try to sell to the person across the table. That's not networking, right? That's direct sales. And that's a very different thing. So if you're talking about your networking not working, I'm looking at it from the perspective of getting referrals from the people that you network with, not going out and holding someone else's head underwater until they say yes. That's direct. I mean, that's not even direct selling, but that's not networking. That's more like you're trying to convince someone across the table from you to buy. So I want to make sure that we're understanding the difference between networking and going out and trying to sell to people in your network. Those are two very different things. Does that make sense? It's really important. Please let me know that that makes sense, because that is going to be a very important distinction between direct sales for people who are in your network and actually networking. Think of possible COI. Think of possible COI. I'm not gathering what that means. Maybe you could give me more information on that, Brittany. Oh, COI. Well, I'm not sure. Now I'm not sure. You'll have to help me with that. North Jersey, but grew up in Central Jersey. Okay, very good. All right, yeah. So we were probably closer to where I lived. All right. So that's what I want to make sure. So I want you to think of that. Now, when I was asking you some specifics, I was asking you to think of some specifics. I was asking for you because I want you to, what that does is it creates a very powerful pre-frame, a pre-frame. If I ask you to think of something that's white, right? You could come up with a myriad of answers from all different aspects of life. But if I asked you to think of things that are white inside a refrigerator, now all of a sudden, many of us are going to come up with very similar answers. Milk, eggs, cottage cheese, the plastic inside a refrigerator, right? That's what I'm saying. So when you can be specific in your ask, and the more specific that you can be, hey, does anybody know of someone who could be a realtor who lives in North Jersey that really is looking to sell more residential real estate? Does anybody know someone like that? Now I'm really specific, and you go, nah, I don't really know anybody like that. But if you did, you'd go, oh yeah, I know this guy Jeff, who's absolutely, yeah, he's got a real estate license the last couple of years, and he's having trouble filling his pipeline. Right? The more specific you can be, the better off you will be when you're asking your network for referrals. All right. So sorry, I was thinking of centers of influence. That would make more sense. I was not picking up that nomenclature at all. So I was like, man, am I having a seizure? I do not know what is happening. All right, all good. All right, thanks so much for So think of possible. Okay, now I'm seeing what you're saying. So yeah, it's not centers of influence so much as it is being really specific, because what that does is it activates something in our minds called the reticular activating system, the RAS. So when I asked you guys, I want you to think of coffee shop owners or people who are in the real estate business or people who are in the heating and air, or even general contractors who do room additions. All of a sudden, that activates something within you to send me referrals. Right now, I'm not necessarily asking for that. I was just bringing that up as a point, because that's one of the main things that I see when people are not really getting the juice from the squeeze in their networking efforts. Okay. And the other thing I want you to start thinking about right out of the gate is, what value are you bringing to your network? If you're not bringing any value, any inherent value, if you're always showing up as that guy or that gal that's gonna be like, oh man, don't make eye contact with Mark, like, because he's gonna try to sell me something, and I just wanna kind of hang out and have a good networking experience at this chamber event, right? Do you know people like that? Do you know, maybe you are like that? Listen, I get it, I understand, but it's not that. That is not what networking is. Networking is about bringing value to the people that are in your circle. So again, I do a lot of these types of events, these training events, to help build and expand my circle. I'm bringing value. I'm delivering value. I'm bringing value to you, and you might say, "Oh, cool! Like, yeah, what he taught was valuable." And there kicks in the law of reciprocity, because I gave you some good information. I did you a solid. You may want to return that favor to me. And the law of reciprocity, it works. It's a real thing. But you can't do that by expecting people to bring you value first. And you're like, well, let them bring me value first, and then I'll extend value back to them. All right. So is this making sense? Let me know. Does this make sense about bringing value? Say yes, value. Bring value. Things that they value. Just because you value it doesn't necessarily mean that they are going to value it. So we're going to be getting into this here in a little bit in terms of how to understand what things that they may value. And the other things is about how you can deliver and generate and create trust with your avatar, with the people in your network. And trust is a big deal. And there are two main components to trust around competence and character. Competence might be number 2 on this list, but character might be number 2 on this list, but I'm telling you, trust begins and ends and lives in character. If you are showing or demonstrating a lack of character, it won't matter what you know. It won't matter how competent you are. If people don't trust you, they are not going to buy from you. Or they will buy from you until they find a better alternative. And I'm telling you, that is just a big deal. There used to be networking events that I would go to. Thank you, Victoria. Absolutely. Bring value. Very good. The thing, it was interesting because I would go to a lot of networking events where there would be married people, single people, whatever. And some people just treated these networking events, business after hours. Maybe they were, golf outings and things like that, but they would treat these events like they were pickup events. And if you're wondering why you're struggling in your networking, maybe that's why, right? And I'm not here to indict anybody. I mean, I have had my share of not great, not showing up the best way that I could. We'll just say it that way. Drinking too much alcohol and getting a little bit too loose, right? With my words, things like that. That's not demonstrating good character. And the reason why that's so important is because these are people who are, business is very personal, right? The people do business with people who they know, like, and trust. And that's why character is so important. On the other side of that, the fastest way to build trust is to demonstrate competence, to demonstrate that you know what you're talking about. And if you are not able to be really confident, right, there's going to be other elements of this. We're going to come back to that in just a hot second. But if you're not able to demonstrate that you know what you're talking about, people don't also have a reason to trust you. Does that make sense? So in other words, some of you are coming in here, you're insurance people, you are, I'm just kind of going through the list here, a business banker, right? You've got other things that you have Sorry, I'm not seeing a lot of, hospitality, right? If you're a certified senior advisor, if you're not able to demonstrate that you know what you're talking about, why would people trust you? And not every conversation needs to be around that either. Make it relevant to the individual, right? Make it relevant to the topic at hand. There are other elements. I think these number one and number two, character and competence, I believe that they are two trees that share a symbiotic relationship. They basically share the same root system. And out of those two trees that share the same root system comes these other fruits. And you've got caring, trust. You've got confidence, trust. Commitment, trust, communication, trust, and consistency, trust. Let me run through those real quick. When you demonstrate caring trust, have you ever heard that people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care? That is part of character. If you only care about the sale and that's what you've been demonstrating, if they don't, if you're like, yeah, once he gets your money, good luck getting a hold of him. Or yeah, once she gets the sale, she's just going to ignore you after that, right? And there's a lot of realtors that way. There's a lot of insurance people that way. There's a lot of people in general that way. And I'm not picking on real estate or insurance people. That's just what comes to mind. But think about that. How can you demonstrate caring beyond just the transaction? How can you demonstrate confidence? Confidence. That's part of competence, right? And that's a fruit of competence, where when you're demonstrating confidence, you're demonstrating not only do you know what you do and you know your thing really well, but you're confident about it. If I came on here and said, well, I kind of know a little about, maybe some things I can show you, or about networking, maybe might be able to help you. You're like, dude, who is this dude? Why am I going to listen to him? I'd have an empty room already, right? But the room is building, right? That's why I'm saying that's important to consider how confident you are. If you're not confident, you probably need to boost your competence. You probably need to boost your knowledge until you gain more and more confidence. And sometimes it's just a matter you're not confident because you haven't had enough at-bats. You haven't had enough conversations about this thing, especially if you're new in a field, right? That might be something you might have to work on. Commitment, trust. How much are people going to trust you if they don't feel like you're committed? And I'm going to say something, and I'm not asking anybody to volunteer if this is true, if you're welcome to, but I'm not asking anybody to volunteer this, but this was absolutely true for me, is that I had so many things going on, and this is so true for serial entrepreneurs. They had this real estate business going on. They had this this house flipping business going on. They sold insurance on the side, and they sold some sort of essential oils on Facebook Messenger, or when anybody, like, they had all these different serial entrepreneurial things going on. How committed are you to any one of those things? Not much. Not much. It stands to reason why people might not trust you, because they don't feel like you're committed to anything other than the sale, other than yourself. Why would they feel like they would trust you, right? Does that make sense? And if that resonates with you, I'm not here to indict you. I'm not here to call you out. I'm just saying, think about that. Why would someone trust you if you were so scattered all over the place? I use this example, and it's really true. I'm gonna change the name, but there was this guy I knew who called himself Real Estate Ralphie. And Real Estate Ralphie, he owned this particular color. We'll say the color was yellow. And Real Estate Ralphie, whenever Real Estate Ralphie put stuff up, you're like, oh my gosh, this is Real Estate Ralphie stuff. And he was in real estate, and he was particularly a wholesaler. And that's what he was known for. And then one day, Real Estate Ralphie starts posting on his Messenger something about some $10 bag of mushroom coffee. I was so confused. I was like, what are you doing? Are you in the coffee business now? Like, what happened to this real estate thing that I knew you for several years? How committed could I trust this person now to really take care of whatever I was doing in the real estate world, right? Because they wanted to sell a $10 bag of coffee. And who knows? I get it. Maybe they were trying to shift, but that wasn't the case. They were not trying to shift. They were trying to add that to some repertoire, and it was extremely confusing. Communication trust. How much can they trust your ability to communicate? How much can they trust how articulate you are, how well you speak, how consistent you will be in your communication, how often you'll communicate, and also that last piece there is consistency trust. How much can they rely upon you to be consistent in whatever level of consistency that they need, and hopefully not consistently bad, right? But consistent in your deliverable, consistent in how you are showing up. So I see a few more people have joined us today. Welcome, first and foremost, and you are here because we're talking about if your networking is not working. So we're going to just hang in there. Let me know where you're from and also what line of work that you're in so I can kind of make this relevant to you. Victorious is an insurance broker and a life mastery coach. Okay, very good. All right, so welcome. So these are all the different things around trust that I want you to start thinking about in how you might be not showing up the best. And I will tell you, for me, probably the biggest one is consistency trust, right? I'm very consistent around a few very good things. I'm not consistent with my email, and that's a problem. So you know what I have to do? I have to hire someone. In the past, I've had a chief of staff, but when I had multiple, lots of different businesses, now I don't have as many businesses, but I had to have an admin who would check my email for me and say, hey, I've got these 5 or 6 emails. I really need you to return those today. Okay, perfect. Because I knew how inconsistent I was with my communication in my emails. And some people, that's all they would do is communicate via email, right? So start to backbuild those infrastructure with that. So one last little thing I want you to think about, because I know some people just kind of want the win right out of the gate with these, and then we're going to get into a quick agenda and about what the rest of today is going to be about. So I just want you to remember that the value of your net worth, how much you are worth on paper, financially, is directly related to the value of your network. And I would also tell you that the value of your worth in general, right, is the value of your network. There was someone who recently had reached out. And this is not a person that I know well. I mean, we are barely connected, and had asked to borrow like $20 or something. And I was like, and it was like in the middle of the night. Like it was like 1 a.m, and I just happened to be finishing up my homework. I'm in a PhD program right now, and I just finished up my homework, and I was just dog tired. And I looked at it and I was like, is that real? Like, did they get their account hijacked? Like it was just a very weird thing. And I'm thinking, like, how bad does it have to be that they're asking someone out of the blue that they barely know for $20 and the value of their network? Like, what is their network like if they have to ask some random stranger for $20? And I messaged back the following day, never heard back, but it was just very strange to me. Why? Right? So think about that. And I still don't know if it was legit or not, but just think about that. If what's your network like? You need to maybe up level your network if you're, having to go out for things like that. All right. So let's look at the agenda. We're going to get into, first and foremost, the Viper framework, the Viper methodology, which is really, it's a great framework if you're a business owner, but it's also really relevant to anybody who is trying to grow a business and trying to network their way into something more effective. We're going to talk about the 4 core functions of business, which have to be true in every business. We're talking about lead generation, which is where the conversation starts. And then we're going to be talking about networking itself. So we're going to be leading all of this. So we're taking a top-down approach from the Viper framework through the 4 core functions of business, the lead generation, then into networking. And then finally, I'll give you some success strategies and some resources for you guys all to be part of at the end. All right. So we've got a couple of other people. So Michelle had to re-sign back in. Oh, okay. All right. Well, glad you can come back. And Mark is in South Jersey, Reputation Management. Very good, Mark. Glad you could join us. Love your name. And all right. And this is Emily Sockler from Colorado, Payroll and HR Specialist. We got lots of folks from Jersey and Colorado today. You guys are representing well. All right. So let's get to the one thing, the main thing about the Viper framework is it is a strategic approach to managing your life in your business. So this is a top-down approach. We are going to get to some tactical, real-world things that you can do in your networking, but I just want to take a real quick couple of minutes and walk through the strategic framework in terms of how I approach business. So the way that I do that is through this Viper framework, right? Which is an acronym for vision, infrastructure, process, execution, and reporting. For those of you who would like a more detailed, expanded view of this, It's in my book. It's right over my shoulder here, The Time Wealthy Advantage. I'm not here to promote that. I just want you guys to know that that is what this is about. So, or that's where that's where I had boiled this all down. So the Viper framework: vision, infrastructure, process, execution, and reporting. Let's start with vision. Vision is broken up into two pieces. It is personal vision and business vision. Personal vision is specifically about what you want your life to look like, right? So Emily, what do you want your life to look like? Michelle, what do you want your life to look like? Victoria, what do you want your life to look like if it wasn't defined by income generation? Brittane, what do you want your life to look like if it wasn't defined by income generation? So in other words, you wake up tomorrow morning with $30 million in your bank account. And again, $30 million might sound like a lot of money, but it's not going to let you live a life like Justin Bieber or Beyonce, right? You're going to have to be a good steward of your money so you don't blow it all away or give it all away or whatever. So I want you to think about that. From day-to-day perspective, what would your life look like? And you probably will still want to be productive in some aspect. You might still want to work a little bit. I know that I would, right? And like if I woke up with $30 million in cash, right? Like that would be life-changing, I think, for most people. And I'm just thinking, like, for me, I don't think it would really change that much for me. I really enjoy what it is that I do. So I'm just saying, like, from the personal vision perspective, where do you want to go? What do you want your life to look like? Where do you want to go? And if it wasn't defined by income generation, if your job description wasn't a life description, think about that, and think about that for a second, what that would look like. And the reason why is because then the business vision or the career vision is going to say, great, how are we going to get there? And you're going to reverse engineer this business that's going to deliver that personal vision for you. So I work with a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of solopreneurs, a lot of people who are in business for themselves, or at least they are salespeople who can dictate their future. But here's the thing. I know a lot of people who are like, especially younger folks, that are like, yeah, I hear you with this personal vision stuff. Yeah, that's great. But let me make 50 grand a month, and then I'll worry about that better life thing on the other side. And I understand that sentiment because that was me for a really long time, probably almost close to 2 decades. And when I really got clear about what I wanted my personal vision to look like, all of a sudden things started to fall into place for me. And here's the reason, like this is I've sat in conferences and masterminds with folks who were making 6 and sometimes 7 figures per month net. And they were absolutely miserable because they were confusing achievement for fulfillment. And the reason why that's a problem is because they've created a business vision before they ever came up with a personal vision. And the danger in creating a business vision without ever giving any consideration to a personal vision is that you end up creating a life that exists to serve the business. So I'm just telling you that it just sucks. It's like an empty well that just can never get filled in. So let's put the fries in the bag on personal vision and just give it one little bit of thought, like what are some things that you look forward to, again, that you could do if it wasn't defined by income generation. So let's put the fries in the bag on that and talk about business vision. Now, what I'm going to talk about right here, this is very foundational for the rest of what we're going to be talking about, and you've really got to be clear on these things. So I want you to be taking stock of which one of these 3 you might be weakest in. Because I want you to, at the end, I'm going to ask you, which one of these 3 do you really feel like you need to be working on? Or which one of these 3 do you feel like you've really got dialed in? And either way is fine. But I just want to make sure that you guys are staying plugged in here so you know what it is specifically that you are sorry, I'm just looking to see if there's any questions. So I just want to make sure that there's going to be some areas that you may need to work on. So let's get into the 3 C's of business vision. And those things are core purpose, core values, and client avatar. Now, again, this is top down. This is very broad scope. And I'm just letting you know right now, when people hire me as a strategist and they have me come in as their CSO, their chief strategic officer, and I'm helping them with all these different aspects of their business, from leadership to retention to client acquisition to lead generation, all these different aspects that just have these little fuzzies hanging off all the way around, and really dialing in. Every single time I've been brought into an organization that has turnover problems or culture problems or even just office gossip, that's a problem. It's because one of these 3 areas here are weak or just completely non-existent. So I'm just letting you know, if you really want to be building something that's really cool and really make your networking much more effective, get really clear on all three of these things. Okay, so let's get into them. Core purpose. Core purpose is specifically what business that you're in and what problems do you specifically solve. And it's really important. Whoa, getting a little crazy with the spinner wheel here. It's really important that you're really specific in your answers. What business are you specifically in, and what problems do you specifically solve, Michelle? What problems do you specifically solve, Victoria? What problems do you specifically solve, Mark? What problems do you specifically solve, Brittane? What problems do you specifically solve, Devin? Okay, Cyrene. Okay, like this is Carol. Like, I want to know what problems do you specifically solve? Because the more specific that you can be with this, if you're like, well, I solve this problem and 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 this problem, okay, that might be fine. But what's the thing that really keeps people up at night? What's the thing that really, like, your fundamental thing? And if you start saying, well, I bring clarity to, stop. Not that clarity isn't worth something, but generally with clarity, there's not enough pain. So it's got to be something more than just clarity, right? Yes, peace of mind could be great, but what is that, like, hey, we drive certainty. Okay, you're getting there, right? But I really want you to start thinking about this in terms of the core purpose. What business are you in and what problems when you solve? And if you're not clear on this, when it leaves your mouth and someone says, well, what is it you do? And you think you're clear and it leaves your mouth, it doesn't get magically more clear when it gets to their ears. You've got to be really dialed in on your core purpose. So for me as a strategist, and I have this card sitting in front of me, so I always review this. Like, I always have it here in terms of what my core purpose is, because it recently changed for me. Well, let me just say it this way. It didn't change as much as it evolved, because it was the middle of, this was probably a month and a half ago. I was in, for those of you who just joined, let us know where you're from. Appreciate you popping in. So for those of you who, again, I was doing a session, and I don't think it was this session. I don't think it was on networking, but I got thinking about it. Like, my core purpose could be a little bit more dialed in. And I put right on here, my job as a strategist is to save time for my clients. That's exactly what I do. I save a lot of time because my clients who are business owners, and they might be solopreneurs, they might have 20, 30, sometimes 50 plus employees, but they don't have the time to try to figure out all the nuances of the problems. And because as a strategist, I have a very unique set of skills in lots of different areas around lead generation, around sales, around operations and fulfillment, and around accounting. And again, like right now, my education is around accounting and industrial and organizational psychology. Quite a unique mix, I guess. But all of those trainings and skills and all the things that I have messed up in the past, I have this ability to look top down, and I save people lots of time. Okay. So what I'm saying is, how do you help people, and what business are you specifically in? All right. So that's core purpose. Now let's talk about core values. Core values might be, I know this is going to sound a little squishy. You're like, oh geez, here comes the kumbaya core values stuff. Just hear me for just a second. Core values is what matters to you about this business, and how would the world be worse off if you went out of business, if you were no longer in business? Why would that matter? And here's why it matters. Because your business is just simply an extension of you. Fair to say? Your business is just an extension of you. So because your business is just an extension of you, your core values are going to spill into the business. Right? Have you ever had, and I'd like to hear from you guys, have you ever had a manager that you were like, oh my gosh, I can't stand being around that person because they don't align with your core values? Have you ever had maybe a family member that didn't align with your core values? Have you ever had a friend, or maybe even a former, romantic interest that didn't align with your core values, and you had to let that person go? And because there was a misaligned of core values, and you're like, dude, you're heading down a path I can't follow. I have to let you go. That's because you have a value. We all have lots of values. But when you're willing to get up off the couch to act on something, that's how you know something is a core value. You left that job because you're like, if I go there one more day, right, I don't want to commit a felony, right, on someone's car. right? Like that's what I'm saying. I don't want you, like, I want you to think about when you have a value that is so strong that you're willing to take action. That's how you know it's a core value. And it might belong to be defined well in your business. Is that making sense? That's really, really critical. Let me know if that makes sense, because this is going to be foundational for the rest of it. And this is why. Because your core values are what define your company culture. And your company culture and your company brand are inextricably linked. And your company culture is what's experienced by your employees, your associates. Your company brand is what's experienced by your customers and your clients and the public. That's why you have to take the time to really get dialed in on core values. And if you have a business that you're trying to grow and maybe at some point sell, I'm telling you, a business is far more valuable when it has a very strong company culture and has a very strong company brand. So we talked about core purpose. We talked about core values. Now let's talk about client avatar. And this is really critical. And I'm telling you, I can't tell you how many people in networking situations who I ask them, okay, well, who do you target? Like, what's your target audience? Who's your ideal avatar? And they have no idea. And they answer the question, well, anyone who, oh, okay, anyone, right? Someone who doesn't have any money, someone who's broke, right? You don't mind working for broke people, right? Like, obviously that's a snarky answer, but I'm saying, like, when you start using words like anyone, you're going to get everyone. And that means you're probably going to get no one, or no one that you want. So the avatar is really who specifically and ideally do you want to serve? And you really need to break them down into geographics, demographics, and psychographics. So think about this. In terms of your geographics, that is where they are. That's pretty straightforward. Your demographics is who they are. Are they married? Are they single? Are they old? Are they young? Are they educated? Are they not educated? Are they wealthy? Are they not wealthy, right? Who are these folks that you're trying to help? And then, do they have children? Do they not have children, right? Whatever. And then psychographics is how they think and how they buy. How they think and how they buy. This is really important. When you're thinking of psychographics, I want you to think of the phrase ALIA, A-L-I-A. And that is their attitudes, their lifestyles, their interests, and their aspirations and goals. So when you start thinking like, well, what attitudes do they have towards work? What attitudes do they have towards insurance? What attitudes do they have towards the government? What attitudes do they have towards reading? Make sense? Right? And you might go, well, why would that matter? It might not matter, but some of those, something in there might matter to them. What is their attitude towards freedom? What is their attitude towards money? These are all things that are important. What is their lifestyles like? Are they young and jet setting, or are they older and homebodies, or are they younger and homebodies? Like, just people love to come home on a Friday and pull on sweatpants. Who is that in here, right? And that loves to just kind of hang out. That's totally fine. That's their lifestyle. What are their interests? Do they like American football? Do they like college football? Right now, college football in Indiana is pretty popular. But, I live across the river from Purdue, but, our rivals, IU, they had an amazing year. They went completely undefeated. Good for them. But the thing is, like, what are people's interests? Do they like NASCAR, or do they like Formula One? Do they like soccer, World Cup? Do they like hockey? What are their interests, right? Do they like reading? Do they like writing? Do they like poetry? Do they like art? What are their interests? And then finally, what are their aspirations and goals? And when you know this about your client avatar, you can speak about these people in a way as if you already know them. So when I start speaking, and for some of you on this call, you might already say like, man, this guy gets me, right? And some of you go, this guy doesn't really get me. That's okay, because I'm not everybody's cup of tea. And that's where in your marketing and sometimes in your lead generation, you need to be a little polarizing. And polarizing means, like a magnet, magnets attract, but what do magnets also do? They also repel. And that's okay. That's okay. You're not going to try to be everybody's customer. You're not going to try to be everybody's referral. That's why it's important to recognize who these people are, who this client avatar is, and who they aren't, because you're not trying to be everything to everybody. Okay. So I asked you early on, before we started this, the core purpose, core values, and client avatar. I'm going to take a sip of my coffee. Which one of these do you feel like you've got really dialed in, if any? Or which one of these do you feel like you got to get some work done? And understand, if you don't have these written down in terms of definitions, like defined, written down with a paper and pen, or typed out, if they're not written down, in my mind, from a 1 to 10, they can't be more than a 5. So just think about that. Which one of these do you feel like you've got a little bit of work to do? All right. And we've got someone who joined us, so I want to say hello. Is it Nadir? Is new in Montreal, looking for new opportunities, and as you know, we need to network for that. Yes, we do. Glad you can join us. All right. So so you guys put that down. I want to know where you feel that you need to do some work in your 3 C's of business vision. All right. So number 2, we're going to be talking about the 4 core functions of business. This is the second agenda item. And the 4 core functions of business are pretty straightforward. They are lead generation, sales, operations, and accounting. And your customer's journey through your company happens in that order. They experience the lead generation, and then they experience the sales function. And sometimes, if you are doing networking, sometimes the salesperson is also doing their own lead generation. Okay, but don't get those things mixed. Lead generation and sales are 2 different functions. All right. So let's see. Carol's the first one. Dialed in. Client avatar needs work on core purpose. Okay. So client avatar is dialed in. That's great. So that means you could really speak well about your client avatar, but you really need some work on your core purpose. That's perfect. All right. Listen, the core purpose, that's a tricky one. And that's not one that people really challenge often. If you have lots of different core purposes, especially if you've got a personal brand that doesn't necessarily align with lots of things, like you're doing lots of different things, that can be challenging. All right. So we've got another person, Brittany, core purpose needs help. It's tricky. It is. It's tough. But I'm glad that you're identifying this. So take that time, set some time aside to get really clear on what it is that you do and what problems do you specifically solve. Okay. So, and that's going to really be helpful and land. That might be the reason why your networking isn't as effective or really bearing any fruit, because again, if you're not that clear, how would you expect anybody else to be clear? If someone says, well, what does Mark do? And you've heard me a few times say that I'm a strategist and you're not really sure what that means, I've not done a great job explaining what it is that I do. Right. And again, well, I bring clarity. That's not enough. But if I say I help business owners get more time back in their day so they can have much more profitable businesses and with much healthier company cultures, and I save them a lot of time, okay, I'm getting there. It's at least a little more clear. But again, I've got to get that stuff dialed in. Otherwise, for you guys, it's going to be much more difficult for you to send me referrals. Fair to say? All right. All right. I think that's everybody. All right. So from the 4 core functions of business, lead gen, sales, operations, accounting, when it comes to the lead generation function, the lead generation, it lets the world know that you're out there through a variety of marketing approaches. And I'm just going to hit this rather quickly. There's really I'm not going to get into all these different approaches. There's outbound marketing, there's inbound marketing, and just the difference between outbound and inbound is who initiates. Think of who initiates. In outbound, think of that as like interruption marketing, where they're sending out ads. They're on one of the ads that gets interrupted on Instagram, right? Or maybe a billboard as you're driving down the interstate. An ad that shows up on your radio station, things like that. Inbound marketing, you want to think of the customer or the prospect initiating. So they're like, man, I really want to buy some organic hot dogs. Where can I buy organic hot dogs? And you go online, you go organic hot dogs. And it's like, okay, here's all these websites for organic hot dogs. And it's like, oh, did you know, like now it pops up because that's more SEO, right? So they're initiating. So now they go out and they find you that way. So that's more inbound marketing. If you're looking at direct response is where you're asking someone to take a very specific action. And that can go out through outbound or inbound. But direct response is like, hey, I'm going to ask you to do something, like open up, so go to this thing right now. Click on this link, or type in almond in the comments, right? That's direct response, where you're asking them to take some sort of direct thing, do this direct thing, go to this store at this time and do this thing, or click on this link and enter in your information. And that is direct response. Personally, I like direct response out of all the marketing approaches just because there's so many positives to it, because it can be tracked. You get a little bit of branding bump from it. Like there's real actionable things that you're doing with direct response that I like. So networking is up there. That's a marketing approach for sure. When you're looking at taking at alliances, you could be take and hitch your wagon to somebody in an alliance. A joint venture is kind of similar. JVs are joint ventures are a little bit more formal agreements where you have two entities that join together that become like this one new legal entity, right? So those are pretty rare, not rare, but not as often as alliances for sure, where you may have just a symbiotic relationship where you might be thinking of like Starbucks inside of a Barnes and Noble, right? That's more of an alliance, right? But where there's really not a joint venture going on because they still retain each individual sovereignty from their businesses. And then you have press releases, and then you have affiliate marketing, things like that, right? So I'm just saying, like, these are various different marketing approaches that, by the way, your networking should absolutely be alongside these things. If you're only doing networking for your lead generation, well, what happens during episodes of like a pandemic? What happens during like when things slow down or your circle naturally closes up a little bit? What happens if you're not well physically, yet you can't network as much as anymore, right? Or like sometimes you lose your voice, sometimes you can't talk, right? It can be difficult to network. So there's lots of different reasons. That's why I like having multiple, I would say 2 to 3, depending on what your bandwidth is, but at least have 2 marketing approaches going at any one given time. You never, ever, ever want to rely on just one single lead source. I just think that's just dangerous in my opinion. When you're looking at networking, this is word of mouth marketing, and there's a real universal truth when it comes to word of mouth marketing. And that universal truth is that word of mouth marketing is always working. The question is it working for you or is it working against you? So you have to think about this when you're trying to get your name out there and you're trying to network and be seen and all these different things, right? Like you have to think about how it could potentially be working. And I didn't always get this right. And I would show up to a lot of different networking events, especially in my town and in Indianapolis, which is about an hour south of me. I mean, I was well known. Now, I can't always say that I was known for the best things, like for showing up the best way. But the thing is that it is about getting the right kind of attention, the right kind of visibility. Because let's face it, the new gold rush is for attention. That's what every person, every marketer that sees you on this thing here, this phone, is trying to get. They're trying to get your attention, and they will do it in all sorts of ways. Think about it. If news was a product, and it is, since news is a product, the best thing they can do is be very polarizing. Most of the news that they post out there is extremely negative, fair to say. And again, right now, we've got a lot of negatives. I don't care what side is on. Like, I think there's a huge middle of us is just kind of going, oh my gosh, can mom and dad just stop arguing? Because this is exhausting. I just want to go back. I want to create a social media channel of just cat videos because that makes me happy. And yeah, maybe it's like holy crap, I don't even want to go on social media anymore because it's so polarizing, right? So I'm just saying, like, but that is how they're attracting attention. I'm not trying to get weird about it, but pay attention because that's what's going on. And you have to stop and think about it. If your networking is not working, you have to start planning an overall strategy of gaining the mental real estate of others. That's the attention that you're looking for. And you can't do that if you're fragmented and doing all sorts of different things. You can't do that and especially, and I'm just putting this out there, I don't hardly make any real political comments or anything like that on my page. And I know that some people just feel like that's their moral obligation to do that. Understood. I'm just letting you know that could really be hurting you in your networking. And I I don't really follow this policy of like, necessarily disconnecting with people just because they have different views. I think, in fact, I learn more from those folks. I really do want to understand their perspective. But I'm just also saying that when you go on your social media channels and start becoming very polarizing, right? Polarizing in not a good way, that could be part of an overall strategy where they're just going to disconnect from you, and you're not going to be effective in your networking because they're not going to pay attention. All right. So just think about that. Think about how you could be showing up for them. And this is really important because when you're first starting out in your networking, there is visibility, credibility, then profitability. For those of you on the call right now, okay, like Michelle and Mark and Emily and Nadir and Carol and Brittany, right? Like these are, I don't know any of you folks. I'm looking on here and seeing if there's Devin, Cyrene. I'm not recognizing Carol. I'm not recognizing any names that I know. Okay. So right now, I'm barely at visibility with you. You're showing up. I haven't really had very many I had a few people leave, right? But they could have left for lots of reasons. Maybe they hated my face. Maybe they had to go pick up kids. Who knows? But lots of different reasons, right? But I'm barely visible with you. You've been on a call with me now for 51 minutes and 23 seconds. I might have a little credibility, but does that mean just because I've got a little bit of credibility that you're ready to start throwing money at me? No, of course not. And quite frankly, I don't even have an offer. I'm not even trying to sell anything on this. What I'm saying is too many people go from visibility to profitability way too fast. And all that does is create irritability. Okay. So you have to recognize that there is a process. You have to follow the steps. You show up with visibility. You demonstrate some credibility, which builds what? You heard me talk about that before. It builds trust. It builds trust. Then after some time, then we get to profitability. And the more dollars that are involved in that transaction is the more credibility you're going to have to demonstrate. If I'm selling this box, okay, and this box, this was a Christmas gift from my bride, and let's say that I was selling this box for $2, and you're like, well, what's in the box? I'm like, it's a mystery, but it's $2, right? You go, okay, you seem somewhat trustworthy. Yeah, I'll pay you $2, right? I'm like, okay, cool. And I give you the box and it's like, okay, yeah, it's $2. It wasn't really what I was hoping for, but whatever. Okay. Like again, you would be much more likely to do that because the stakes are so low. Make sense? You don't mind going to profitability really quick. And men, by the way, this is not sexist. This is based in fact that men tend to go from visibility to profitability a little faster. Women tend to be more relational, right? Men are more transactional. Women tend to be more relational. And there's the actual study behind this. So I'm not trying to sound sexist here. That just means that they take a little longer to go through the VCP process. And that's fine, right? There's nothing wrong on either side with men being transactional and women being more relational. Either way is fine. But you have to understand that if you're a female networking with other females, that female that you're working with, if you're a female who tends to be more transactional, you may have to recognize that the female across the table from you might take a little bit more time to send you referrals or to maybe even do business with you directly. Okay. So you just have to recognize that. There was a really good book that was written by Ivan Meisner, Hazel Walker, and Frank DeRaffaella called Business, Networking, and Sex, Not What You Think. They wrote it back in the mid 2000s, and really, really good. And it really gets into the heart of the matter around this very thing around gender. So it was really, really interesting. So visibility, credibility, profitability, and this is something that I learned when I was in the BNI world. I was a BNI. I was up in the area director role for a little while. I mean, I was in it for 14 years. Loved BNI. It's a networking organization, and just if nothing else, it's just really good to check out. I really enjoy those folks. I haven't been in it for a number of years, so I get nothing for mentioning them. But anyway, if I were to ask the 5 people that were closest to you, what is it that Emily does? What is it that Carol does? What is it that Mark does? Nadir does? How many different answers do you think that I would get? If I was to ask those 5 people that were closest to you, what is it you do? And think about that. And maybe just as a test, go and ask the people and say, hey, look, if you were to describe, and you don't get to correct them, but if you went to them and say, hey, can you describe to me what it is that I do? And if these 5 people who are closest to you are giving 5 different answers, how in the world are you possibly going to expect people who are not that close to you to give referrals that are going to be meaningful? Again, you got to get back and be really clear about your core purpose, your core values, and your client avatar. This is, again, about owning their mental real estate and not being so fragmented, especially among business owners who are like, oh, I'm a serial entrepreneur and I've got 12 different businesses going on. I'm like, okay, what hat are you wearing today? You've got to own their mental real estate, and you've got to be a little divisive, and you've got to take a stand. Like kind of like I was saying earlier about being a little polarizing. You also have to ask for referrals. Have you asked, hey, Carol, I know we have been networking for a while. Can I ask you a question? You've never sent me any referrals. I've really worked hard at sending you some. Is there any reason why? Right? Or, can I specifically ask, do you have any connections, Carol, to any HVAC or contractors, or maybe people who own restaurants? Like right now, I have a piece of software which restaurants could really capitalize on, right? Especially if they have a good Facebook presence, they can actually monetize directly from their Facebook group, right? Or directly from their Facebook page. And I don't know about you, but I know a lot of restaurants really don't like sending all that money to Uber Eats, right? They'd like to keep some of those dollars, and this is a way for them to do that. So that might be something where you can ask, like, hey, this is the ask that I'm trying to make. This is the ask. Hey, Michelle, tell me how I can help you. Who are you specifically looking for? And this is who I'm specifically looking for. Ask for the referral. Remember how I started this session out? I asked for the referral. I asked you, who do you know who owns a coffee shop, owns a restaurant, owns an HVAC company, right? Think about that. So how often are you actually asking? And again, lead with lots of value. Don't just show up and say, hey, here I am again to network, and I'm not bringing any real value. If I know that Nadir lives in Montreal and is looking for new opportunities, okay, well, I don't really know, Nadir, what you exactly that you're talking about. But if we were networking a little bit, I'd say, well, tell me a little bit more about that. What exactly are you looking for, right? Tell me a little bit about your goals, your aspirations. Now that person Nadir becomes an avatar, right? It's like, okay, cool. Now let me understand what your goals, your aspirations, right? And that allows me to lead with lots more value, so that when I show up, for example, now I can start saying, okay, hey, I can bring value to that individual, and all of a sudden I'm networking and saying, hey, did you see that game? I know you're a big football person. Like, did you watch that? Oh my gosh, what a great game, right? Or whatever. Okay. Or, hey, I'm not really a football person, but hey, this is something that I thought you might find interesting. All right. I want you to think about how do you prep your network for referrals. And this is going to be something that's really interesting. Again, this is probably the biggest takeaway from the entire thing. And I think the 3 C's are absolutely foundational, but I'm going to give you something a little bit more tactical. So just hang in there for just a few more minutes. We're going to be wrapping up here in about 10 minutes. If I was going to say to Emily, okay, and Emily, Emily's like, oh, I know an electrical contractor who lives in Colorado, and I know exactly, yeah, they really need help. They've got all sorts of turnover. They've got lots of leads. They're not really sure. They have trouble with salesmen. They've had a lot of people in and out of their organization, and they're really kind of at their wits' end. They don't really know what to do. They can't stop doing this because this is how they feed their family, but they do need help. Okay, great. Well, this is how you do this. So you'd say, well, how do you warm up how do I train Emily to ask for the referral for me? How do I train Emily to ask for the referral for me? So this is what happens. So Emily, let's say that this is her brother-in-law. So I'm going to say, okay, hey, Emily, let's say that next time you're talking to your brother-in-law and he starts going off on, oh my gosh, I had 3 more people show up on Wednesday. They showed up an hour late. It really pushed my whole day back. Man, I'm so frustrated. I just don't know what to do. Emily, Man, that sucks. Who do you have helping you with that? Who do you have helping you with that? That answer is going to dictate how she can hand that off to me. Does that make sense? Who is helping you with that? So when Emily asks her brother-in-law or the referral, who's helping you with that? He might say, dude, I don't even know. I don't even know if anybody can help me with that. Well, tell you what, I actually was on this call with this half bald guy, 53-year-old, who's got a 53-year-old daughter who lives in Indiana, who actually he might be able to help. Would you be open to having a connection, a conversation with him? Like, sister-in-law, I would love that. Give me his name. I will happily chat with him. Or, no, I'm good. I don't want to get into all that. Right? Okay. Done. There's no referral, and sometimes the no referral is better than the referral, right? We all know, like, oh my gosh, why did you send me that person? Did I make you mad? Right? But you start thinking, like, who is helping you with that? That is a really good way to train your referrals, to train the people who are doing your networking, who you're networking with, to ask for referrals for you. So you're not selling to all the people in your network. You're getting them to act as your sales team. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? So again, just to reiterate that, because that's so important, is if I ask Carol and I say, Carol, anytime if you're talking to a restaurant owner and they're like, yeah, man, I really am, we're just dying for sales. Like, we do all this social media stuff and it's just not helping. Okay, well, who do you have helping you with that? Well, we've got this 19-year-old handling our social media, but there's no real connection. Okay, well, is there anybody else that's helping you with that? No, not really. Okay, well, would you be open to having a conversation with someone? I was on this call and blah, 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 and yada, yada, right? So you see how that could work? Who's helping you with that? Really, really powerful way to do that. Right? Is this making sense? Because you guys have gotten really quiet. So let me know if that's making sense, if that's helpful for you. So let's talk about some success strategies. I'm going to give you these really quick. They are the 15 reasons why people buy, the 6 principles of persuasion. There's actually 7 because I actually have to update this. Robert Cialdini actually talked about the different principles of persuasion and then different mistakes to avoid. So I'm going to put this up there. Emily is saying, yes, thank you. Okay. Glad that was helpful for you. When you're talking about the 15 reasons why people buy, I'm going to take myself, let's see. No, it's making dollars. Mark, you have the best, you have dad jokes just like I got dad jokes. So, that is fantastic. So, oh, I got a great dad joke for you too, though. Can I do a real quick dad joke? I'm sorry. I know I'm running a little long. What did the drummer name his twin daughters? Anna 1, Anna 2. I don't know why that joke is so funny to me. All right. Very good. All right. So this is the 15 reasons why people buy. Okay. So I'm going to take myself down up here. And what I want you to do is I want you to take a quick screenshot of this. And I want you to think about why people might buy. And these are reasons why people buy universally, right? People will buy because they want to make money, they want to save money, they want to save time, avoid effort, escape pain, right? And that can be physical pain, emotional pain, spiritual pain, right? They want more comfort, they want better health, and that could be in the form of less stress. They want to gain praise, they want to feel more love, and they want to increase their status. People will buy for truth, and they will buy for truth, especially if they have felt lied to in the past. That is very salient. People will buy for growth, and then that could be they will buy for growth in their knowledge and growth in their faith, right? Growth in their wellness. They will buy for just because something is new. They will buy for something just because it's new. They will buy for certainty or more perceived control, and they will buy to be in contribution to others. So here is your homework. After you have taken a screenshot of this, what you're going to do is I want you to think of all the ways, directly and indirectly, why, how you, directly or indirectly, can help people make money. Directly or indirectly, how you can help people make money, and get a little creative with the answers. If you're like, dude, I build houses. I don't really help people make money. Do you really? Because if you build houses, I can tell you, I can make an argument for how you help a lot of people make money. So you might get a little bit creative with the answers. How do you help people save money? And come up with 10 reasons how you help people save money. And come up with 10 reasons how you help people save time, avoiding effort, escaping pain. And if you're able to do this and you come up with 10 for each one of these 15, now you have 150 different reasons why someone might do business with you and your product or service. So that way, when you're networking with them, you're not trying to come up with answers on the fly. You've already thought through some of these things about how you might help people. And again, are people going to want to do it for all 150? No, they might do 7 reasons, but you're listening for these. And once you've developed these out, you can be much more effective in your marketing, you can be much more effective in your sales, and you can be far more effective in your networking. Okay? So this is a really good homework exercise, and I would really encourage you to take the time to do that. Let's look at the principles of persuasion. Specifically, I'm not going to go through all 6 principles. They are reciprocity, commitment and consistency, social proof, liking, authority, and scarcity. But I'm really going to hone in on reciprocity. Reciprocity, for those of you who have ever been in BNI, it's about givers gain. It's about giving so you will receive. And you lead with value, right? So that's the main thing that we were talking about when we're talking about leading with value. Bring value to the conversation. Bring value to that other individual. Right now, have I at least delivered some value to you? I would like to think that I have. Maybe some of you are like, man, this guy's a blowhard, right? Well, not that many people have left, right? I think one's kind of been in and out the entire time. But I'm just saying, like, if you didn't value this stuff, you wouldn't have stuck around. So I'm just saying, think of ways that you can deliver value for people who are really important in your network. Okay. And that's a real important law of reciprocity. And the thing is, I want you to think about this. Look at you. Look at yourself. If you don't see yourself as part of the problem, you're never going to see yourself as part of the solution. If you're not giving referrals, how in the world can you possibly expect to receive any referrals? So I just want you to make sure that you're understanding, like, how many referrals have you given? And this was a question that I would ask very often when I was a director in BNI and when I was an area director, and people would say, man, I'm thinking about leaving BNI. I'm like, okay, why is that? Well, I'm just not getting any referrals. Okay. Tell me about that. How many referrals have you given? How many one-to-ones, meaning meetings that where you're networking individually with an individual person? How many of those have you had? Right? How much are you putting in to your actual networking before you can ever expect to get anything out of it? And a lot of times, not always, but a lot of times it was, well, you're right. I'm not putting as much into it. And quite frankly, I'm not putting as much into it because I'm busy. And that's usually what happens is people end up getting too busy until they're not. And then it becomes this big mad rush to figure out where they're getting clients from. All right. So just a couple more things. We're going to put the fries in the bag. So mistakes to avoid is having an unclear message. I think we talked about that around being clear in your core purpose, being clear in your core values, and being very clear in terms of who you serve and through your client avatar. That's that's important. And also failing to follow up. This is sales 101. If you're not going to follow up and if you're just going to wind up with that stack of business cards with people that you barely remember 2 weeks later and then completely forget a month later, you may as well not even go to the networking event at all. So failing to follow up and having a CRM, having a system for following up with these people, not just, oh yeah, I networked with them once and I sent them a message and they never messaged me back. Okay. So is that it? Is that what you call networking? Put those people in a list, put those people in a CRM, spend a few bucks on Pipedrive or Zoho or something. I don't care if you create a list on the back of a towel, do something. So how you have a trigger to say, oh, I reached out to Emily 4 weeks ago. She messaged back. We had a good exchange. And then what? That was a month ago, right? I need to let Emily know, hey, still thinking of you, sister. How you doing? How did things go with your whatever, right? How did things go with your kids? How did things go with your friend's surgery or whatever, right? Like whatever that is. And then say, cool, right? It is not your network's job to remember you. That is your job to stay in front of them and stay relevant. There's a guy, James, who's in my circle, who is fantastic at this, and he's better at it than I am, and I'm pretty good. But he always reaches out to me, and we haven't really seen each other in a long time. But he's in the real estate world, and he does a great job of building and maintaining that network. One other thing I want you to think about is monopolizing people's time, especially like you're trying to network with this one person. And this is pretty true, not just in like networking events. Like, this is particularly true among introverts, but I see it happen too many times when like you're trying to, connect with someone who's kind of important in the room and you're trying to monopolize their time, play it cool, man. Be cool. You just got to be like, hey, don't puppy dog lick them. And like, oh my gosh, you're so and so, right? That's fine. Be cool, man. Play it cool. Just network with them and say, hey, think about, and I use this analogy, and people who understand American football understand what I'm saying. Like, you have that quarterback's clock going on in your head where the football is hiked and it's 1,000, 2,000, 3,000. They know by 3,000 they need to be throwing. They need to be getting that ball out of their hands, or they need to get out of the pocket, because they know they've got that internal clock. You need to start developing that awareness where you're starting to monopolize their time. And generally what I'll say is, hey, look, Carol, look, I don't want to monopolize your time. Or, hey, Emily, I know we've been chatting for a while. Hey, Michelle, I know we've been chatting for a while. I don't want to monopolize your time. Let's connect. Let's connect after this, because there was a few other people that I want to connect with in the room. And there's nothing wrong with that. Exchange cards or do whatever you're going to do, but set a time to really follow up with them. Hey, what's the best way to connect with you? Is it email, texting, or call your office? Call my office. Okay, perfect. I'll take out, and generally, and when I'm networking, I'll have this, jacket on, and I usually either will have a blue, you can't really see it because I know you're far away, but I'll either have a blue or a red Sharpie right here in my pocket, and I'll write that on the back of the card, generally the month and date, and then the context and how I met them, and maybe some, like, oh, business after hours, January 26th, right? That's month and date, or month and year rather, and then some context like, oh, loves spring rolls, something goofy around the conversation that's going to help me remember who they were. And so you don't want to monopolize people's time. Mistakes to avoid: don't be inauthentic. I mean, just inauthenticity just is not going to get you anywhere. Don't lie. Don't self-aggrandize. Just be your true self. And if you have some character flaws, maybe try to work on those. Like, don't allow those things to squeak out if you're doing some inner work on yourself. But inauthenticity, people they don't want that. They just don't. And also not giving referrals. This is something that I have mentioned before, but and then recognizing that transactional versus relational thing that I talked about which is very typical of men being more transactional and very typical of women being more relational. But again, that is a very broad brush. It's not exactly universal. I'm just saying some people are more transactional, some people are more relational, and the transactional people tend to go through the VCP process a little bit faster. The relational people tend to go through the VCP process a little slower. I'm a dude. I'm a little bit more relational. I want to deliver more. I want to develop more trust before I just go, hopping into the profitability bandwagon. Okay. So that's just me. All right. Again, get to trust as quickly as you possibly can. And remember, the fastest way to create trust is to demonstrate competence. And the fastest way to destroy trust is to demonstrate a lack of character. So we're going to jump off here. This one last little piece I want to share with you guys. This is it's funny, but not funny, but this guy right here, he is holding a gun to a teller right now, and he is a bank robber, and he has not made any attempt at all to cover or conceal his identity. So these two guys back in 1995, MacArthur Wheeler and Clifton Earl Johnson, robbed two banks in Pittsburgh. And again, they made no attempts to conceal their identity, except they rubbed lemon juice on their face. And they were so convinced that by doing that, that would make them invisible to security cameras. Yeah, I'm not kidding. So this is interesting. So what two researchers by the name of Dunning and Kruger, they really did this study based on false confidence. And false confidence is it's this Dunning-Kruger effect. So everybody starts down here at the bottom left where confidence is low and competence is low. But when you start out in that endeavor and you start learning competence really quickly, you spike in your confidence, right? It's this very false confidence. And all of a sudden you get to this peak of Mount Stupid where you realize, oh my gosh, I don't know what I don't know. And as you start to learn, you get in really quickly. Sometimes you learn really fast. Oh, wow, I don't know what I don't know. And you start to crash down into the valley of despair. So your confidence takes a major hit, even though you've learned a couple of things. And this is where a lot of business owners give up because they get into this shiny object syndrome. Oh my gosh, this is going to be a lot more work than I thought. And they start climbing up this slope of enlightenment. If they keep building on their knowledge, they keep working on their competence, and eventually they'll get up to the plateau of sustainability. my point here is to have a support system. And the thing that I'm going to offer you guys, it is no cost. You can come to my school room at Strategic Boardroom. That is the URL. I'm actually going to put the link in the group chat here, and that way you guys can go straight there. There's no membership fee as of right now, but that will change. So if you guys want to be in and get in now, you can do that while there is no cost. But again, right now, I don't really have it built out. I literally just started this a few months back, and with much coaching of people who are saying, hey, dude, you really need to be part of this. So anyway, so that's that. So if you'd like to go to that link, you're more than welcome to join me there. That is all I have. I'm happy to stick around if you guys have any questions. You guys have been a lot of fun. I really do appreciate you being so dialed in. And I really, again, I just hope that you're spending the time really working on yourself, really working on your core values, your core purpose, and your client avatar. You're working on those individual things that we talked about today, the 15 reasons why people buy. How are you showing up in terms of being trustworthy and all of those sorts of things? All right. So you are more than welcome, Nadir. Thank you guys for hanging around. And if you don't have any other questions, I will see you guys in the boardroom. Take good care.